This is so random, guys. And you guys know we love these like on the fly podcast interviews. We do them every once in a while. They're always amazing.
Yes.
So we literally just left the Black Professional Summit. And Alicia was on a panel with this wonderful young man that we have with us today. And he was just talking like with this smooth, sexy voice, and all the women were just like, "What? What do you want? What? What about your story? What do you do? What about the chains? What about chains?" And the truck, and and he was just so captivating. We literally like, "Oh my God, can you be on our podcast?"
Yes.
We just love how you talk, and we love how you are how he breaks things down and how he says things that just is so inviting and so engaging. And he was like, "Yeah, I can be there in like an hour." We were like, "What? Okay,
oh, let's do it."
So that's what's happening, and that is just such a testament to community and the Black Professionals Network of just helping people connect and helping people find members of their tribe and not just network but build relationships, as Alicia says. So I'm super excited to have Jude Charles here with us.
Thank you for having me.
And if I remember correctly, you are a storyteller. So you work in, just give us all the things.
I run a video production company.
Okay.
And I specifically create documentaries for entrepreneurs. That's my specialty. That's my niche. I've been doing that the last 10 years. But that's what I do. I bring stories to life through video. And
bring them to life.
That's awesome.
And then I happen to consult with like people that want to tell their stories better or on marketing campaigns, but primarily it's a video production company.
Okay, and then something that we ask all of our guests, because we always have guests that have all these titles and do all these wonderful things, we actually like to ask, who do you say that you are? Outside of that, outside of consultant, outside of storyteller, outside of video production, CEO, like who do you say that you are just as a person, as a human being?
Curious.
Really? Okay, that's a good one.
I've never heard that one.
That's a new. We always hear something different. It's fascinating.
It really is.
Deep, as you can tell from the
you
panel.
said that. Yes.
Those two things matter to me most because curiosity. I used to write 100-page books as an 8-year-old.
Oh.
Yeah, because I would think about what my future life would look like.
At 8.
At 8.
Okay.
And
that is really the story you tell yourself. I love that.
And then deep is just because I think I noticed around the age of 20, 21 that I'm a deep person. I don't like small talk. We talked about that.
Yeah.
I don't like small talk. I'd like to really get to know people. And the relationships that I have, some of them are relationships I've had since I was in elementary school. Friendships and relationships.
And have they been able to have such depth? Because we were just talking about that on the ride over.
Like time-served friendships.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, because we just been here for a while, let's just hang out still. As opposed to like friendships that are really helping you grow and build your character. Because I think Alicia, and I say this all the time, is such a master of connecting and also finding the depth in new relationships. And it's something that I aspire to because I love new energy, but I'm like I like your new energy and this is really nice, but I'll never see you again. And I'm so cool with that until at this point in my life where I am wanting more depth from new relationships. And you're so good at that, at genuinely connecting with people and like following up, and then like I'll see this person again in a year that we met at the same event, and I'm just like, y'all friends now? Like, why not here? And she really will like be their friend for real. They'll like hang out and go to lunch, and her follow-up game is on another level. Like it really is, and it's so inspiring because it requires such confidence, but I think it requires such a deep trust in yourself that I don't even think you realize you have sometimes. Like you trust yourself so much to make a decision that you know that you have the discernment of who should come into your space and who shouldn't. And I think that's such an important, you know what I mean? It's such an important thing to have about yourself, because I think a lot of times we don't seek out those relationships because we're so afraid of getting our feelings hurt. Because that's what happens a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
I think as a man, it requires a level of vulnerability that isn't always easy. So when you ask me like the friendships I have, specifically with the male friends that I have, they're like my brothers. But we got that way because of being vulnerable, having real conversations. The conversation we was having in the beginning is the conversations I've had with my male friends. Being able to say as a man confidently that my woman doesn't make me feel like I'm enough. It's not an easy conversation to have with another male friend. Because we don't talk about our feelings. We don't talk about our emotions. But for me, I try to open that door and be vulnerable. Hence
the depth.
Right. Yeah.
I love that. And I really do like, too, where you are basically inviting them into another way of being.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is dope.
And it's always really surprising to me. It's even like on television, you watch things, and when you give people the space to do things, you can be really surprised how much they respond to it and how excited they are. And it's like they could excel. Like, oh my God, I've been waiting for somebody to say this to me. Like, I've been waiting for this circle. I've been waiting for this experience. And a lot of times we just assume that the other person isn't there or they're not willing to open up. That's why I just love the work that Jay Barnett does so much. With his Just Heal Bro tour. Yeah, he's this ex-football player that is now a therapist. And he does this thing called Just Heal Bro.
Okay.
And he does like a tour and he like goes to all these different speaking engagements, and he's like literally an advocate of helping Black men, especially if they have been incarcerated, to learn how to express themselves and to be vulnerable and to say, hey, my mom really did a number on me. And that's why I like to count my bodies, and that's why I do woman dirties, because I really hate my mama. Like, and it's like these great conversations that Black men just have never in this country at least had the space to like say and to do, and that's why we wanted to talk to you about, because you're a storyteller, and we were like, oh, we could talk to him about like the stories we tell ourselves and the stories that define us and the stories that really map out our lives. And sometimes the stories that you're telling yourself aren't even your story.
They're not even yours,
right?
It
like
doesn't
it's not
belong
even
to you.
something that you it's like something your great granddaddy started, and now that's like, oh, that's just what I gotta do, and that's who I gotta be. And I was just we were so intrigued by that idea of just like finding better ways to talk to yourself so that you can have a different outcome and write a different story for yourself.
Like the story that you were telling, I would love for you to share it with our listeners, but the story you were telling is really what captivated us both, and I still will forever remember the change.
It was so good, right? It's like you remember his story. That is, I think that's the mark of a good storyteller, right?
I connected instantly.
And how much of it do I remember?
Right.
Because that's how you pass stories down from. Remember before we would write things down, stories were literally passed down through word of mouth. So it's like, what's the sign of a great story? That I remember it. And I remember your story, so it's awesome. So please share your story that you shared on the panel that had everybody like.
So before I share that story, I want to share one of my favorite quotes, Henry Ford. Henry Ford was the guy that created Ford Motor Company. He has a very simple quote that I love, and it matters to the story that I'm about to share. He says, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't,
both are true.
You're right.
You're right, yeah.
You are right.
So in 2011, I woke up to the sounds of chains hitting the floor. And it was always a nightmare for me to hear these chains hitting the floor, because it always reminded me of something that had happened 8 months before. So I got up out of bed, went outside and looked at the window. And what it was a tow truck driver coming to repossess my car for the second time in 8 months. And in this moment, I'm 5 years in business. And I remember thinking, you know what? I started this business at 17 years old. I've given it a good run. 5 years. I did not go to college. And so maybe I got time to go back to college now. Maybe my parents are right, because my parents didn't support me being an entrepreneur. And so in that moment of sitting down for like 30, 40 minutes, and in that moment I get a call from a client that I had been working with for a year, Keisha Dior. She goes by Keisha Kayor now, but her name was Keisha Dior back then. And Keisha and I had been filming a documentary about her business, cosmetic business, Kayor Cosmetics. And the documentary is called Building the Brand. So Keisha calls me, and she calls me and excited. She's like, Jude, you won't believe it. I just got off the phone with my accountant. He told me we made $1 million.
Wow.
At this point in my life, I'm struggling to make $20,000 a year. My 5th year in business. Keisha has been in business for 1 year, and she's made $1 million.
Wow.
The bigger context of that I didn't share earlier, I had only made $3,000 off of that project. So in that moment, I saw it as two things. Here's proof that I can't make money, that something is wrong with me. Or here's proof that you can create something valuable because it created $1 million for your client.
Listen, perspective. Which one will you choose?
Wow.
So whether you believe you can or you believe you can't,
you're right.
You're right.
Yeah, it's true. It just depends on
whichever way you want to look at it.
It's the story you tell yourself. And we're not even following each other on social media just yet. It's going to happen.
This has been that bad.
Yes, literally. This has been quick. But literally, and it's so crazy because I just said that.
Yeah. Can we pause real quick and just
absolutely.
That story in itself, because this is getting real meta. We talk about how fast this relationship has, how fast this relationship has happened.
Yeah.
I'm an introvert. So certain things take a lot of time for me to do and process, right?
Yeah.
When you asked me to be on the podcast, at first you said tomorrow, can we do it tomorrow? Normally I would have been like, can we do it next month? Right?
You said no to tomorrow.
I did say no to tomorrow.
Like,
but then I had to process in my head, can I do this sooner? Because technically, so we're recording this about 3 o'clock. I have to be somewhere by 6. So I was like, can I do it?
Yeah.
And we did make a connection while we were sitting there on a pond, never met before, first time meeting.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can make this happen. And so instead, what I originally said 2, but then ended up being 3. Yeah. But that's a story that you tell yourself too. Whether the opportunity, when it comes, and it's right in front of you, are you ready to take it?
Oh my gosh, we literally, and isn't this so crazy? I love like confirmation and stuff like that. On the way here, I was talking to you about when you say you don't have time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I literally just said that, and I was just like, I was saying to her, I was like, I stopped telling myself that this week because I would find myself like, I don't got time for that. I don't got time for that. I don't got time for that.
Yeah.
I don't have time for this. And like, you just start to like get yourself into this space where you just find a way not to have time as opposed to finding a way to have time. Or what you think isn't you having time is just you wasting time.
Yeah.
You know,
wasting time and wasting your gift.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So it's so. I love that you just said that because it's like such a confirmation for me because I struggle with that so much with like really like being really honest with what's actually happening right now. Yeah. It's just like I'm on like a very big undertaking of trying to get back to my pre-baby weight. Okay. And I think I've given up on the weight part, just like size and feeling good again to kind of get back to that space. I've worked out my entire life. I was an athlete. Like, I just love to feel good, right? And I started getting into a space. I started this program, a 30-day program that I started. And I got about like 4 days into the program. And my daughter got like a teething fever. And that day threw me off so much. And I like was like, fuck this program. I was just like, I can't. Like, it's just too much. Day four. And I was so excited. I was talking so much shit. You know, you get hyped. You know, you get so hyped. Like, I'm gonna do this program. It's gonna be the answer. It's what I was looking for.
She was like, I don't want no suggestions. I'm already starting. I'll holler at you in 30 days.
And the fever, like with her, she like I needed to be in bed with her all day. Like I couldn't get up. Like it was like I was in mommy mode. And I was like, oh my God, this is like, why? And I just started telling myself all of these things about like why I won't lose the weight and why it's so impossible because now I have this life and is it really that serious? And like, oh, I'm just going to take even longer. Like 30 days is not realistic. And I just started going down that rabbit hole of all the excuses that are valid. Yeah. They're valid, right? But their excuses are not reasons. Like that's not the truth. Like that's just something that your brain will come up with to make you feel better. It was comforting. It was like, well, maybe I'm not really a quitter. Because I'm a mommy and mommies have harder lives and it's so important to tell yourself the truth so that you can then start to react differently. So I had like a moment with myself where I was just like, okay, I may not be able to do the 30 days in this way, but I have to do something. Yeah. And I have to find what works for me in the world that I live in. So maybe for me, sticking to something as strict as this is not feasible for me right now. But I need to find a way to create a workout, something that is going to be good for me. Yeah. And that's exactly what I was like, let me just go back to this thing that works. When I leave and I can step away and somebody else got to figure it out, that works for me. But if I'm here, it was like an at-home workout thing. And it was just like, that just does not work for me right now in my life. Yeah. And I think that's such an important part of trying to figure out what your journey is going to be is really being honest with what actually works for you and not what people say you have to do. Right.
That's why I really liked what you were saying when it comes to telling yourself a specific story. Is which one do I want to grab hold to? Yes. So what you both said is you chose the stories that make you feel good enough to keep going. Ooh, and what too many times we do is too many of us will choose the story that just makes us feel the best. Yeah, yeah. And sometimes just feeling the best is not enough to keep you going.
No. But how do you know that you're not being delusional? Do you know what I mean?
I think you should be delusional.
But to what extent? Like, if I'm like a 45-year-old person and I'm like, today's the day I start my rap career. Like, I'm going Meg the Stallion. Yeah. Like, that is my life. Like, call me like, I don't know, like some name, like call me Coco LaFleur or something. And I have a rap name and I'm going to like, this is my life, but Alicia, I'm going to become a rapper.
And you know what I'm going to tell you? Because I'm that friend at 45. I'm going to be like, what is the gimmick and who is your target market?
I have it. What if I have it all figured out? Some people have all that. I'm just saying, at what point is it the decision that the fork in the road is, hey, I might need to pivot and do something different, and hey, this was actually a sign for something greater. Like, how do you know the difference between you being delusional and you walking in your purpose?
Ooh, that's it though. It's the purpose.
Okay.
It's the so I only know this now after being in business 16 years.
But tell us how you figured it out.
Here's how I figured it out. You talk about whether it's delusional. The picture's not always going to match what we think it's going to match.
Okay.
Okay.
So leadership has always been important in my life. I always knew like I had a gift to lead, but I didn't know what that looked like.
Yeah.
2014, I went to a leadership conference in Spokane, Washington.
Spokane.
Right.
I haven't been there.
Exactly. So I went to this leadership conference, and I decided that on my way back home, I live in South Florida. I was just like, you know what? Washington State is the furthest northwest point of America. Florida is the furthest southeast point.
Yeah.
Cross country.
Literal.
And I said, I'm 25 years old at this point. And I'm like, you know what? I'll take a Greyhound bus.
Oh, my Lord.
Oh, that's awesome.
The Greyhound?
No, the dumbest idea.
I was about to say, girl, bye. Have you been on Greyhound?
You don't want to see it's like, you wanted to see
that's
the
what
country,
I thought.
right?
That's what I thought.
That's what I'm thinking. So
I wanted to see the country. I wanted to digest it. I was miserable by day 2.
Yes.
It was a 3-day trip.
People are stinky.
People are weird.
And stinky.
Yeah, they are weird.
I'm a 6 girl. I have if it don't smell good, I start to itch.
People are weird. Okay. So you're on
dirty.
this Greyhound bus 2 days and you're over it.
You about to fall out.
I have my phone off the entire time. Because again, I'm trying to take it in. I've been to this leadership conference. But I was over it after day 2. So we get
Turn your phone on.
I turned it on. We got to Chicago, Illinois. And, you know, like anything, the text messages coming through because I've had it off. I get this text message from my sister. She says, call me back, it's urgent. Now, this is July 2014. And at this point in my life, Mom was diagnosed with depression and had attempted suicide before.
Okay.
Dad, right before I left, was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Oh, God.
So I knew it was either Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
And I braced myself. I called my sister. It ended up being Dad. They found him unresponsive in the house. So I take the first flight back home.
Yeah, because we got to fly now.
We got to fly. We got to get back home. I fly from Chicago, Illinois to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And my brother comes to pick me up. And he comes with his daughter, my niece, Ayana. And I feel lost at this point because I'm the youngest of 10.
Yeah.
My dad would never get to see me get married or have children.
Yeah.
He had seen it with the majority of the other kids. There was still an older brother of me who didn't get married yet or have kids. But I was just like, I never imagined I'd lose my father at such a young age.
Yeah.
So I sit in the back seat with my niece, Ayana, and I'm just staring off in space.
Yeah.
And Ayana, she's 9 years old, and she looks over at me. She says, Uncle, why did Grandpa have to die?
Oh, my goodness.
She's 9. And she says it again because I'm just staring at her. I don't know how to answer.
And had he passed away yet?
He had passed away. They had known, I didn't know, but he had passed away.
Oh, goodness.
And so she said it again, why did Grandpa have to die? I never answered her, but that question rang in my ear. And August 9th, I'll never forget, August 9th, 2014, I, the youngest of 10 children, was asked to give my father's eulogy.
Oh, wow.
I'm not the oldest male.
Yeah.
There's 3 other brothers. But yet my family leaned on me to lead them through that process.
Yeah.
Wow.
So at that point in my life, I realized leadership wasn't just important. Leading through difficult moments was important.
Ooh, and how you show up.
And how I show up in that moment, right?
Yeah.
And so now my mission and purpose is to lead and empower entrepreneurs to have relentless courage. Yeah. But when you ask, like, how do you know when you're being delusional or not? I could have felt like, no, I'm not. I'm the youngest.
Yeah.
I'm the youngest male.
Yeah.
Who am I to give my father's eulogy, the man who had lived such a great life? He wasn't just the center. He was the patriarch of our family, but also with his siblings. Like, everybody came to him.
Yeah.
who am I to talk about his story and where he's been and what he's done?
Well, you are the storyteller, clearly.
I am, but so when you think about purpose, though, it's not going to always look convenient or comfortable or like the thing that has the perfect picture. Yeah. Even if you want to be a rapper at 45, what is the purpose behind that? It's not just I want to do it just to do it.
Yeah.
Are there other
it's
people?
Like a long lost dream. I just always wanted to do it. I just always wanted to fulfill this.
I'm a firm believer in trying it.
I think you should try it. I think it's purpose.
Try it. Yeah.
You cannot, in my opinion, you can't do anything without purpose.
Absolutely, I agree.
If we look at what's happening now with Elon Musk recently bought Twitter.
No purpose.
Maybe to you.
There has to be.
I am actually a big fan of Elon Musk. I'm not a fan of how he does things.
Right.
But I am a fan of the fact that
he just does all the things.
No, he has a great story. And maybe it's because I'm a storyteller, I attach myself to people's story.
Yeah.
When he was at PayPal, he was kicked out of PayPal on the day that he was leaving for his honeymoon. He found out on the plane that they had kicked him out as CEO.
Yeah.
SpaceX, that he has now built into this multi-billion-dollar company. The astronauts, his heroes, did not believe in his vision. They actually went in front of Congress and was just like, we don't want this guy building this company.
Did some bullshit.
And a reporter had asked him about Elon Musk about that, and he cried on camera. It's the only time I've ever seen Elon Musk cry. But the reason I bring up SpaceX, though, is you look at Jeff Bezos, who has probably the same amount of money as Elon Musk, building Blue Origin. But Blue Origin hasn't been as successful as SpaceX. And so that's why I think purpose, he may not have purpose for Twitter just yet, but when you find that purpose, money isn't enough.
It is
a dream is never enough.
It is never enough.
It's the purpose. It's like
purpose. You have to have some purpose.
And it was Susan on our panel who talked about the clarity of vision. When you get that purpose, and then you get the clarity around that.
First of all, you are all in our conversation. This is why, and so we don't just ask anybody to be in our podcast. I know you just met us, so you don't know, but we don't be about no bullshit. For us, it really does matter that we're bringing people in who can help folks identify triggers and then help them to heal them. So as you were speaking on the panel, there was something energetic that was happening, and I was like, he don't even know it yet, but
for sure.
I'm going to ask him.
Yeah, because we hadn't spoken.
Yeah, and I didn't even know you were her. She had talked about you, her co-host.
So I didn't, we hadn't had a conversation, and I walked up to her, and I was just like, I want him on the podcast.
Yes, and I was
she was like, yeah, I was already way ahead. Like, we didn't even speak because, one, we're just super connected like that and just on the same wavelength, but there's just such I wish people paid more attention to energy, and I think a lot of it, especially for the Black community, has like a woo-woo.
It's been demonized,
demonic type of a thing.
Yeah,
in a way, but it's such a necessary tool that exists anyways.
Yes.
So it's like
it's
not like I didn't conjure up energy. I didn't make it up. It's not something that I'm coming up with. It's like something that's just there. You can walk into a room. What do you think you feel when you're like,
the vibes?
Tense. Yeah. It's tense in here, or this house feels cold but it's hot. Like what's happening here?
Yeah.
And because we're not taught to tap into our own kind of agency and ability to figure things out and to feel things, because we're taught like, okay, God is going to give us the answers.
Or the preacher will tell us.
I 100% believe that God gives us guidance and we have all these things, but there's just such a power that we hold because God is living within us that we don't really get we're never really taught how to exercise those abilities and trust them to know that, hey, I can sense when there's something here or there's something deeper, there's some kind of a connection that needs to be made for whatever reason.
Yeah. I think you said it earlier off camera, but it's discernment.
Yeah. Yes, that discernment. Yeah. That's why I said this was ordained. Like before we met each other, this was ordained. Because she and I in the car, because I keep saying I have not been consistent enough. And she was like, I'm really confused about what it is you're talking about. You're very consistent. And I'm like, no. Just like when you haven't given your best and you haven't done what you needed to do. I was like, I have not been intentionally consistent because I did not have clarity around what it is that I wanted. Yeah. And then for you to say the same thing, and then for Susan to say, like, no, you have to be clear on what your vision is, because then you tell yourself a different story, the story that keeps you moving versus the story that keeps you starting and stopping and stopping and starting. And, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I can't do this. Well, oh, somebody is better. Oh, somebody else needs to do it. It's like, no.
No, you need to do it.
You need to do it.
Yeah. What do you feel like your purpose is?
To lead and empower entrepreneurs to have relentless courage. So
Relentless courage.
Relentless courage.
I love the word relentless.
That's a different type of energy.
Yeah, that's different.
That's different.
It requires a little delusion, like a drop.
I like delusion.
It does, though. It does.
I feel like everybody should be a little
But I had to be delusional.
With themselves.
I had to be delusional that at 17 to think I could start a business.
Yes.
And last 16
plus years. To come from a Haitian background, right? Caribbean family, to be the only one that didn't go to college.
And I know that was a big old thing. You know how
right? You
Caribbean folks are about going. You better go to somebody's school.
And I say that because, like, in general, certain people will stop themselves because family didn't agree.
That's a big one. Maybe the number one thing.
The number one thing. And it took... So I started in 2006, maybe 2013, 14 until I got my mother's approval.
That's a long time to be like.
How did you stay the course without the approval of people that do matter? Like, you know, a lot of times it's just like Susan even said on the panel where it was just like, your brand is what people think about you. Like, you cannot. Your reputation matters. How people think about you does matter. It shouldn't be paramount. It shouldn't be paramount. It shouldn't be the main voice. Yeah. But it does play a role. So it's like, how did you navigate naysayers who are close to you, who do matter, where their opinion holds weight? How do you kind of navigate that space to keep going?
I'll give you the cute answer, and then I'll give you the real answer. The cute answer is I could see something that other people couldn't see.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That clarity.
That's the cute answer. The reality is answer. I just didn't want to give up.
And I just don't give a fuck. I
mean, it's all the things.
I don't know how. I just kept going. But I do think it was just like, no, I could see this. This can work. Yeah. This can work. Even though at the time that my car was getting repossessed, it was just like.
But I know it. It's a knowing.
And when we talk about discernment, or we talk about energy, or God, for Keisha Dior to call me in that
moment, telling you she has all of this money and you were literally getting your car repossessed in that moment. Yeah. I feel like for me, and I just got chills, those are the whispers that God sends to say, hey, no, you're still on the right path. Stay steady. Yeah. Yep. Stay steady.
And it comes in, and that's why we were talking about, we be talking about all the things off the air. We be talking about, that's why we started a podcast, because it was literally like, we would have these amazing, we've been friends for over a decade. And we would have these conversations. We're like, people need to hear our conversations. Like, we don't have normal surface conversations about men and whatever. Like, yes, we talk about men, but I think even those conversations are different, and there's just so much depth in our relationship and our conversations. But that's why it's so important to be in tune with, for us, we believe in a higher power, whatever that higher power is for you. But you do have to kind of root and plant yourself in something higher than yourself. I feel like to stay the course and to also stay in tune, because it's easy to kind of want to be like, okay, well, you could have looked at that situation like, she's calling me, and damn, like how you said, like, man, like, I'm clearly not doing the right thing. But because you were in tune, you were realizing that, okay, no, this is something else. Like, you're trying to tell me something else, and you cannot be as discerning if you're not in tune. Like, the radio signals can't be crossed, because it's easy for another voice to come in and say, what are you talking about? I don't know. This might be time to just throw in the towel.
Hang this up.
You know, so I think when it comes to spirituality and, you know, we have all these different things now, there should be a little bit more context around what you're trying to attach yourself to, and what that power, whatever you're manifesting or whatever you're trying to accomplish, and you say that you're tapping into something, it's like, but what is that thing? And is that thing really the thing that's working for you, if it's so easy for doubt and fear and all those things to creep in and throw you off your path? It's so important to kind of stop and do some inventory sometimes on your spiritual walk, because there's no way to have discernment and to be able to decipher those things and really have that belief and trust in yourself without some kind of higher connection. Even if, whether you believe it or not, like, that's just what's happening. Like, that's just it. Whatever you want to call it, I don't care. But it's something beyond you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you have to sit with it. You have to sit with it and really...
Stillness.
So I, since 2013, before my father passed away, I've been taking 2 months off every year. So before, it used to be November, December.
You do the same thing.
It used
to be. Does not work in December, like, at all.
I went through burnout, though, in 2020, and so that was June and December.
Okay. So you can get a little midpoint. I like that. You need a little break. But if I'm being honest, I do that in the summer when I send my daughter, y'all, to her daddy. Listen, I got year round. Summertime, ayo, champ, you're up. Yeah. And I just act a fool. Yeah. And I connect to joy.
So you take up June and December 2020. Okay.
And then I've been doing it ever since. So I'm getting ready to go into my sabbatical.
Sabbatical.
Month off in December. But you got to sit with it. And I say that because when my dad died, immediately after, so I run my own company and I let all my clients know I'm not working. I'm done. I'm off the grid for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was, this is a side note, but it was in that moment I realized I was meant to be an entrepreneur. Mm. I didn't mind working. I come from a very hardworking family. Yeah. I didn't mind working. I didn't become an entrepreneur because I didn't want to work for the man. I became an entrepreneur because my teacher saw something in me, said I could make money, and that's all I cared about.
Like, okay.
Right? But then my siblings couldn't take time off of work. And I just realized, I could never do that. To lose my father?
Yeah.
Or just someone close. Let's not even say a parent, but to lose someone close and they can't take time off to grieve?
Yeah. That's
one thing. But I had that time to sit still. Mm-hmm. And I realized that losing my dad was a part of my purpose. I would have never figured out that I was meant to be a leader if my father didn't pass away.
Oh my God, I'm about to cry. This is like my story. That's so fascinating. Wow.
But that's such a hard thing. So
that's so hard.
It's hard to say because I love my father.
Yes,
of course.
I still wish he was here.
Yeah.
It's been 8 years. 8 years this past July, and I still cry on the day that he passed away. But I also understand, because I took the time to sit with it, that had that moment not happened, had I not given the eulogy, had I not understood that I was meant to be an entrepreneur, I would not be walking my purpose right now today.
So that was the answer to your niece's question? Yes. A part of the answer.
Why?
Yes. Why
did he have to die?
Is for me or for God to begin to fulfill the purpose in me.
Yes.
Because I started by saying I didn't know how to be a leader. My dad was a leader. Phenomenal leader.
Yeah.
And so I had always had the blueprint right in front of me. Just not paying attention to it in a way that
because you didn't need to. Yeah.
I didn't need to.
Yeah. My GPS works. I don't have to figure out where I'm going, left or right. Button press.
He's the
literal GPS.
Right.
He got you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
you didn't have to tap into those skills.
Yeah, but I think you got to sit with it to understand purpose, to understand these moments in time that keep happening.
Yeah.
And what they really mean.
Yes, what they really mean.
You have to sit still and sit with it. And that, in my opinion, means sometimes not being consistent.
Oh, elaborate on that.
Just tell me off.
You feel attacked.
If you're consistent, you never stop and slow down. You never think about, am I on the right path? So I don't talk about this frequently, but I'm retiring from video production. And I'm still trying to figure that out. But I'm walking away from it.
That's what I did. I did that in 2020. I retired from my marketing and branding firm. I said, this isn't sustainable. I have to leave.
Yeah.
I have to leave, and now rebuilding a completely different company.
Mm-hmm. I haven't completely walked away yet.
But I walked away.
I haven't completely walked away yet. But what I realized, so I have these core values. We talked about core values, and I have these core values: depth versus width, adventure, storytelling, freedom, and then relentless. And I realized when I burnt out in 2020, I realized I wasn't free anymore and I wasn't relentless anymore.
Oh, so you had built a business that had you going against your core values. So you wouldn't be able to be fulfilled because you're going against the very part and nature of who you are.
Right.
That's some good stuff there.
But that only happened because I took time off in December. If I would just keep going, which is what led to burnout. If I had kept going, I wouldn't be able to pull it back and say, hey, this is what's really going on here, right? Yeah. So yes, be consistent in the season that you're meant to be consistent. Yeah. There's a season for everything.
Yes, there is.
Oh, that part.
Yes, there is. There's a time
in the same in nature, right? In nature, there's the fall, the winter.
Seed time, harvest,
all that, right?
All of it, yeah.
But you have to I strongly believe you have to take that time off. If I did not take time off periodically, which is now June and December, I wouldn't have a clear vision of where I'm going.
I like that energy. I think I'm gonna adopt. I really do, because I never thought about it. I literally do send her away. When people ask me, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm discovering joy right now. But I never thought that it was taking time off. But I'm going to get much more intentional. I like that twice a year.
I'll tell you what I do specifically in December. June is something different, but December specifically, no social media, no technology. I don't communicate with my family during that time.
Oh. That's off. So you go off the grid.
I literally call it off the grid. And everybody knows December 1st to December 31st, Jude is not available.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm going to have to be a little available.
So,
and for context, I'm not married yet. I don't have kids yet. So I know it'll probably change a little bit.
Yeah, especially if you get a little...
It's going to have to.
Yeah. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah. But I think it should still at least be...
At least maybe a week.
A week.
Absolutely.
Of complete stillness.
Complete stillness and silence, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that's good. You see how we so bossy? We didn't came in and we were just like, well, maybe. We heard what you said, however.
Yeah.
But we talked about that off camera. Yeah. That is the gentleness that's needed, right?
Yeah. And then you see how we just did that and you were like, well, yeah, maybe. It wasn't well, you got to. It was a
exactly.
That might be a good idea.
Y'all see how we did that? I need y'all to take notes.
Yeah.
He said what he was going to do.
Yep.
And we were just like, well. Yeah. And he was like, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
That's how you do it, ladies.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the stillness is needed. Like, when we think about discernment, purpose, getting clear on a vision.
Yeah.
You can't be consistent and do that, in my opinion.
Because you will need to, because you can't, at least in my opinion, too, you can't run and rest at the same time. Yeah. Like, you have to. Yeah. You have to pick one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like the idea of the stillness, and I'm very happy with a lot of the recent just people kind of tapping a little bit more into meditation and things like that. But again, because I think so much of New Age spirituality lacks context, I feel like there's often, to meditate means to empty the mind, right? And if you're emptying your mind and you're not replacing that emptiness with something, then there is a lot of room for other things to come in without your permission.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I love the idea of stillness, but I love even more the idea of stillness with a purpose, with an intention, with replacing and filling your mind with different things and with better things and the things that you're going to need to take you to that next level.
Yeah. Yes.
Meditation is great, but there needs to be like a follow-up. It's like, okay, I meditated, I emptied my mind. What am I replacing? How am I rewiring?
Yes.
How am I restructuring this now empty mind for this moment to even take on my day? Like, you know, it's just like but when I started meditating a decade ago, and I would meditate, and then like I would feel good in the moment, and then I would like come out and like be ready for the day, and then feel really confused sometimes. And I'd be like, why do people do this? Like, I feel like shit. Like, this feels crazy to me. And I
didn't close the loop either.
I did not.
So I do journal on mine.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. And I journal, I wish I could remember everything I journaled this past December, but it was just like, even though I'm not married yet, what is marriage going to look like?
Yeah.
What will it look like for me to be a father?
Yes.
Of course, work as well with the business. What does that look like? So I do journal in, because I agree with you. You do got to feel it back. You have to have a vision.
You have to. You can't just empty your mind, y'all. I know it sounds real good and it's real cute.
Where are you going? Yeah.
And it looks good on social media, but you have to replace that. You have to I feel like you're emptying it to kind of like refresh it. Like, you know, you dump out the water, you put in some fresh water. Like, think about it that way. It can't just be, I'm going to meditate and just sit there and calm and empty my mind. But now my mind is like, okay, y'all, what do I do? Like, now what? Like, your mind needs direction. Your body needs direction. Your life needs direction. And you will find that through stillness. But I just think there needs to be some clarity and vision as to why you're being still in the first place. You know, I think it makes a difference.
You want to make sure for a lot of, you know, New Age folks who are just getting into yoga and into meditation and things, in the beginning, you have like an opening ceremony where you're getting yourself, you're bringing yourself in, you're bringing yourself open, you're da-da-da-da. And then at the end, you need to make sure you also close the loop, because then you are too receptive to all the energies. And then you start attaching yourself and things start attaching, because you become like a beam of light. So anytime like I lead like meditations or like affirmation sessions, I always make sure, okay, now we're going to close it and seal it so that you don't just get, little rodents
coming in. And then other things start to tell you different stories as we close out, because I know we just like dragged you out of your day.
Yes.
But I love storytelling. Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love film. I love movies. I've been to acting classes. Like, I am obsessed with stories. Yeah. It is my favorite part of humans. Yeah. Like, your story is just the most, I just want to hear, like, I really care. Like,
it's genuine.
Like, there was a girl in the audience that was like, there was a networking panel, and the girl was like, hey, like, I have a hard time because I hate small talk. Yeah. And everybody was like, yeah, we all hate small talk. Like, we hate it. And she was, Alicia, a few panelists gave an answer, like, like, find something you can compliment on the person, or, talk about their travel, or, like, find something. And she was just like, but what if I don't care about that? And we were like, okay. And she was just like, his suggestion was, like, ask them how they, what is their superpower. Alicia's was, how do you show up in the world? How does your magic show up in the world? Yeah. And she was just like, yeah, but what do I care about that? None of that either. And it was just so honest, but it was just so real, because I was so like, wow, like, I'm sure there's so many people who feel like, wow, I really don't care about none of these things. And I really like the fact that you asked, what is your superpower? And I like that she said, she came up to us after, and we were talking to her, and she was just like, wow, she's leaving with a different story in her mind. Like, she's now, her perspective has shifted. Yes. So I wanted to kind of ask you, like, how do you tell yourself a story? How should people speak to themselves and tell themselves stories that can kind of shift the way they approach life? Like, how did you learn that? Like, it sounds so good. It's like, self-talk, say nice things, say nice things to yourself, affirmations, like, that's really cute. Yeah. But when you have some real trauma and some real shit that has happened to you, and people who told you wouldn't be nothing, and people who talked down to you and told you ain't shit, you ain't never gonna be shit, your daddy wasn't shit, your mama wasn't, like, that's some people's real reality, especially in our community. Yeah. So it's like, what is the real way, not the cute way. I love affirmations. I'm a firm believer in that, but, like, especially for men, like, how do you start to kind of tell yourself a different story?
You have to surround yourself by different people.
Woo! There you have it.
He did this on the
mic drop moments, right?
And it was the last moment, and he had to close it out, and he said one thing that was like, well, okay, there we go.
Surround yourself with different people.
Okay, so that's where you start.
I went through an identity crisis when I burnt out in 2020.
Okay. And you've been in business for how long at that point?
14 years.
Wow. Ooh. Okay.
Right? And so I had prided myself on hustle, grind. But what worked for me in my 20s would no longer work for me in my 30s.
Ain't that the truth?
Right.
The energy's different.
And when I started seeing a therapist going through burnout, he said to me I had to find a different way to work. But that was so hard for me.
Yeah.
Because I knew how to work. Like, I knew how to keep doing things. There's Reginald F. Lewis has a famous quote, keep going no matter what. Now, Reginald F. Lewis was the first African-American to form $1 billion business. And so I read his book. He has a book called Why Should White Guys Have
All the Fun? Yes.
And but one of his quotes is like, keep going no matter what. And I really believed in that. Keep going no matter what. But I can no longer do anymore. I got to learn how to be.
Tired. Yes.
And unfortunately, I had a lot of people around me that celebrated me for doing, not for being. And so when you talk about removing the trauma, removing, like, how do you learn to be? It is you have to surround yourself with people who will tell you a different story that you will then be able to believe in. Ooh, right. Mrs. Donnelly, the teacher that gave me my first set of business cards, saw a story in me that I could not see at that time. I was 17. That's just not where I was in life. Yeah. But she handed me my first set of business cards because she saw a different story.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God.
I think when you surround yourself with different people, and they see something in you that you may not see yet. It's in you. Yeah. But you don't see it yet. You can then hold on to their belief of who they think you are. The good parts.
The good parts, yeah.
So that's the first part. That's the first part, right? But to make it extremely practical, I talked about this on the panel, is to have a confidence folder. And I literally have a folder in my phone that says confidence. It's an album. And I put in there things that I want to hold on to, that I believe, or that I may even want to believe.
Yeah.
Because that's the other way to tell yourself the right story. I think as a kid, when I was writing those books,
100-page
books,
at 8.
I was trying to figure out where life would go, but I was also trying to write my own script.
Yes.
I'm the youngest of 10. Didn't really have a voice in my family growing up.
Of course not, you baby.
The sibling before me is 6 years older than me. So I was really, really baby. My mom was 40 by the time she had me. Dad was 48. And I was just trying to find my voice. Yeah. And I think even as we get older, we don't realize we still have to keep finding our voice.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right?
In this new stage and phase that we're in, you got to find your voice now.
Right.
Here. Yeah.
And so I think number 1, surround yourself with better people. Number 2, the confidence folder. But 3, write. Yeah. Write a new script. Even if you don't believe it yet, what is possible?
Yeah.
Yes.
What is possible? And it could be the simplest things. It could be, I want to be a better mother, or I want to be a better friend, right?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
I want to be a better human.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
Make it 3-dimensional. Write out that story of you walking. When I went through burnout, I went to the grocery store September of 2020. It might have been around that time, maybe 2021. And I got out of the car, was walking to the grocery store, and I heard a loud bang on the left side of my ear. And when I looked over, I'll show you the picture afterward. It was a Tesla car on top of another car. Ooh. So immediately I ran over, and there were 2 guys standing there, and I was like, did anybody call 911? Nobody's responding because they're shocked. There's 2 people in the car, in the Tesla, and nobody responded, so I asked again, nobody responded. I ended up calling 911. But what I didn't know is the car that it was on top of, there were 3 people trapped in the car.
Oh, goodness.
I tell that story because at the time I was telling myself because I was going through burnout and I had to learn a different way to work, I didn't feel like I had value, that I had worth. Because I had tied my worth to the work that I do.
Yes.
But in that moment, and I have that in my confidence folder, I had to start to write a different script.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it could be as simple as going to the grocery store. Are you going to be the human, you talk about being a better human being, are you going to be the human being that helps?
Yes. Or are you going to say, oh, that's none of my business, and keep walking?
And keep walking. Because there were people that did that.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's not me, and now I can write a different script about who I am versus what I do.
Ooh.
Right? So number 1, surround yourself with different people, the environment. We talk about discernment and energy. Yeah. Number 2 is confidence, but number 3 is you literally just got to write it out sometimes.
Write a different story.
And just like if you just start with the confidence of a mediocre white man, like you're gonna be way ahead of the game. Yeah, like if you just start there, just try to tap into.
But you know what? Lovey said something though that I loved. She said she is no longer wanting to tap into that because it's bland, it's unseasoned, and it is far less than who we were meant to be.
I'm just saying if you really far down, if you just really don't have any direction, it's just a starting point. I'm not saying stay there. But if you got it, I'm just trying to give you a starting point. It's just, they have a lot of confidence that I don't understand. Okay, as bland as it is, look at the world we live in, honey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen.
So
this is so good. This I feel so full. Yeah. So where can we stay connected? All the things. Where do we?
Easiest is judecharles.co. My website. I do write a newsletter, and I write all about this in depth. Things that are happening. I write in real time about like what's happening in my life. I'm very, as you can tell, transparent, vulnerable. Yeah, it's not easy, but what I've noticed is in being transparent, it helps someone else. When I started talking about burnout, because I didn't really understand it, but I had other people walk up to me and just was like, before you said anything, I never understood what was going on in my life. Yeah, they were burnt out and didn't have a name for it. I didn't have a name for it, but they didn't have a name for it, and so I write about that. I'm transparent, and I get to speak and all these things, and it's really just to share my story.
Are you on Instagram, Facebook?
I am, not as active as I probably should be, but everything is Jude Charles. So on Instagram is Jude Charles, Facebook is Jude Charles, Twitter is Jude Charles, LinkedIn Jude Charles. But yeah,
all the things.
This was so awesome. I hope you guys got all the things that we got from it. Yes. It's so important to tell yourself a different story and to just decide. We are all the author of our own lives, so it's so important to sit down and take that time and figure out what you want your life to look like.
Absolutely.
Like, it's just, I wish that as a community, as just people, I don't even think it's just Black people anymore. Like, we are fed so much
junk,
and propaganda, and we're soaking up so much information that you just get so lost in the sauce. Like, you don't even know what your story is anymore. You don't even know who you are. You don't know where to start. It's just like, it's so important. I really want to emphasize that stillness and just sitting with yourself sometimes, or sitting with a friend that sees you for real, and just fleshing it out, and just talking about it, and journaling, and just trying to rewrite a story that you can be proud of. I love that story about you looking and being like, am I the band that helps, or am I the band that keeps it moving and says it's none of my business?
Right.
Which one am I?
How do you even know? Like, how, if you're not sitting with yourself, and I think all of this boils down to self-awareness.
Yes.
Self-awareness.
Yes.
That is like the magic word. Like, if you can find a way to tap into your self-awareness and we were talking about this too, have conversations with yourself. It's not crazy. It's not going to commit you to an institution. Like, it is important to sit and have conversations. Ask yourself questions. Why do I feel like this?
Yes.
Why am I so irritated by this lady? Like, I was telling Alicia, I had like an issue with a person, and I was like, why do I like this lady? Like, what is it about her that makes me feel like this? Like, and I had to tap into my own thing. I was like, oh, she makes me feel like I'm not seen. Ooh, why don't I like to feel like I'm not seen? Oh, because I've always been like the small girl, and sometimes people make me feel like I'm small, or have tried, or because sometimes my personality is so big, I've had people try to shrink me, so I get a little testy when you try to shrink me.
Just a little testy.
And then I realized that it's something that she does so unconsciously, and it's like just having the conversation and asking myself the questions, and just being so in tune with just yourself and who you are. And you guys talked about this on the panel, like knowing who you are, and just being like, and being who you say you are. So I like that you have those conversations with yourself, and I think a lot more men need to be comfortable with being like, hey, I'm not really sure who I am. What does it look like to try to figure that out outside of what I do?
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you so much.
Seriously,
this was so necessary, and we're so grateful to have connected with you, and I hope our audience continues to connect with you, because you're a gem. And so much a lot of men need to know that it's okay to be like this.
Men get around better men.
Like,
just period. Just that's the first step. It's just, and that's, for me, that's what it's really been. Like, when I talk about changing your environment, finding different men to be around.
Absolutely.
That have the life that I want, whether it's marriage and children and how they are fathers. It's not all about the money. It's about being a whole human being.
Whole. If you don't get out of all the things listen. We're gonna be friends now. We already are. So just prepare yourself. Tell your lady that I'm not trying to. It ain't like that. I love your mind and the way you think and the way you approach things and the way you go after things like this. It's some magic. So don't you, we're connected now. Prepare yourself. So no, I want you guys to make sure you stay connected to all things Triggered AF. If you are not subscribed to our Patreon, there is a really dope conversation that we had before we started recording this. You need to tap into that. So make sure that you are subscribed to our Patreon. We also have an upcoming event. We're going to be live in color, in person, in LA. You want to make sure you're there. TriggeredAFevents.com. Make sure you're there. You can stay connected with me all over Beyonce's internet. But before I tell you where to stay connected with me, I want you to make sure go to Triggered AF PC on all the platforms, or Triggered AF Podcast on Facebook, to stay connected to us, and then to me, Alicia Reese. All the platforms. Y'all already know my name is spelled extra different. Google it. It'll come up.
And I'm at the Danny Bordeaux everywhere, BOURDEAU. You can also go to triggeredafpodcast.com to subscribe to our newsletter, and so you can keep up with everything that we have going on. You can even watch us on YouTube. You can do all the things. We everywhere. Yeah, okay, so please stay connected. Share this episode with a friend, especially with a man in your life that you feel like needs to tell himself a different story. Thank you guys for listening, watching. Bye. Bye.